Welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for the week of April 29th, 2024. That's right, you still got me here as opposed to me and an interview subject. I'm still looking for somebody new to interview, and I've gotten pretty close a couple of times, but things have fallen through. If you're interested in an interview on the Solid Signal podcast, drop a line because I'm always interested in finding new interview subjects. Some of those interviews ended up being very well regarded in the podcasting community, so I'm open to doing a whole lot more. But this week, I want to talk about my experience from the past weekend. And a lot of times when I'm coming up with topics for this podcast, I mull over a couple of them in my mind, and I ended up with something with a little bit more relevance to me and this particular moment in time. We are at the end of April, not even the beginning of May yet, and most television shows are already airing their finales. We're starting to see absolutely no new movies premiering on the streaming apps. We're seeing practically no new TV shows, and that's beginning to look pretty bad. In the words of Larry David, pretty bad. Why? Of course, we know the answer to it. It's because of the strikes last year. And you know what? This isn't a political podcast, so I'm not talking about the reason behind the strikes or anything like that, or whether or not they should have gone on as long as they should have. I'm sure we all have opinions on that. But what I am talking about is the very fact that production on pretty much every bit of entertainment out there more or less stopped for about 5 months, and sometimes longer, because it took a while for things to get back going after they'd been stopped for so long. What does that mean? It meant that for almost half a year there was nothing being finished, and that means that now we're seeing nothing coming out. At first it didn't seem like there was a lot of impact to these strikes because, shows like this and movies like this, they often get produced a year or more before they come out. And if it's a special effects film, they can be shot 2 years before they eventually come out. And the special effects houses aren't really parts of the union, so you didn't see a lot of effect on that. No change to the release schedule in a lot of cases. But now things are different. Now we're really starting to see the absolute lack of anything due to the fact that nothing was produced last summer. And here we are almost a year later and nothing is out. There will be some movies that make it to the summer movie season, but this isn't really a podcast about that. This is a podcast about stuff that you do at home. And that means it could be pretty slow out there until October or November. And you should be prepared for it. You should be prepared for it by doing what I did and trying to find new things that entertain you, or things that you are familiar with and comfortable with that have always entertained you. There's an old joke about reaching the end of the internet. The internet is so huge and it's growing by leaps and bounds. YouTube famously puts up more than 24 hours of content for every day that it's up. So it would be utterly impossible to watch everything on YouTube because you'd always be falling further and further behind no matter how hard you tried. And so it is theoretically impossible to reach the end of the internet. And with all of the streaming apps out there, with all of that past library content, it should be easy for us to get through a period of 6 months without anything new, right? Well, this is where another concept comes in. You might have heard the term choice analysis or paralysis by analysis or whatever it means. It's the idea that if there's only 2 or 3 things on, then you always have something to watch. But as soon as you've got 100 things to choose from, you find yourself scrolling through Netflix for 20 minutes looking for something to watch because nothing seems absolutely perfect. And that's what happens with the internet. I spent a decent amount of time over the weekend kind of scrolling through apps looking for stuff to watch, stuff that, might pique my interest, even though maybe I've already seen it, or I've already seen something similar, or, it might fit my mood or it might not. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. And in the end, I gave up. That's right. I gave up on the internet. I'm not saying I permanently gave up on the internet, but For now, I spent most of my weekend, and I anticipate spending most of the weekends to come until the fall, watching good old fashioned live TV. That's right, stuff that you can get from an antenna, stuff that you can get from satellite. Why? Because the choice paralysis just isn't there. Even though satellite TV's got 200 channels and you can often find 50 to 70 channels of live TV, there's just always something that you can settle in on. There's something where you'll go, okay, this is good enough, and then you kind of sit back and get into it, and you give it a chance, and you become drawn in rather than spending the entire time scrolling top to bottom on the guide. There's always something new coming out, and it seems like, especially if you want to watch a Marvel movie, there's always one on. It seems like TNT and or FX, and if you want to watch one of the Godfather movies, they seem to almost always be on one of the Showtime channels, which is great because you can just drop into a movie that you like and just spend a little time with it and not even have to watch it all the way to the end. You just kind of enjoy a little bit of it. And that's great. I really am very glad for traditional live TV at times like this because it allows me to find something that I'm going to watch that really just, is there, and I don't get that sense of doom from scrolling through an app trying to find something to watch and nothing is perfect. Now, you might be saying to yourself, yeah, but what about watching something like Pluto or Tubi or the live channels that are on Sling, or there's 3 or 4 other apps with live channels now. I think even Vudu has live channels now. And this stuff is out there, and I like watching it as much as you do. But the very way that it's organized is a little bit less amenable to the idea of just finding something that you want to watch. Because I love the idea that these channels are organized by topic. I love the idea that there's a Star Trek channel and you can always pop in and there's going to be Star Trek on. I love the idea that there's a This Old House channel and there's always going to be This Old House on. And that's great, but it does kind of limit the sense of variety that you'll find by going to good old traditional live TV. So yes, I will look at these live streaming channels, the so-called FAST or free ad-supported television channels. The thing is, it just doesn't quite do it for me. And I have a feeling that if you grew up in the 20th century, the same time that I did, that it didn't quite do it for you. So if it's been a while since you've watched live television, because there's just been so much good stuff on streaming over the last several years, give it another shot. A lot of people ask, well, why do I even have a live TV subscription or an antenna if I'm not going to use it? It seems like a lot of people are saying that live television from satellite or antenna is going the way of the landline, but it just goes to show you that there's life in the old girls yet. There's just something about watching that live experience, especially, the kind of things that just you find randomly. Especially, you put on a channel that basically has the kind of thing you're interested in and, just let it sit for a little while and you might find something that you want to watch. That changing of the show every half hour or hour or so means that you're not just watching the same thing over and over again. I personally could probably spend, 48 hours straight watching Star Trek and be perfectly fine, but it might also be kind of fun to watch an hour of Star Trek, followed by an hour of Batman, followed by an hour of Mission Impossible, followed by a dozen other things that you're just going to find when you're watching live TV. It's just a good choice. It's a choice that still makes sense in the year 2024, and it's a choice that's going to make sense for a while. Because I think eventually maybe we will all learn how to use these streaming apps in a way that's just as comforting as watching live TV. I don't know about you, but it's going to take me a lot longer than just another year. This isn't a case like landlines where all of a sudden you turned around and you'd made the transition from landline to cellular and you didn't even know it. No, it's going to take a little bit more reprogramming. And I know I'm not the only one who thinks so. I know a lot of people who are okay, not in their 20s, not in their 30s, who still watch live TV, who still watch, oh, there's a show on that, yeah, I guess I could stream it the next day, but I'm going to DVR it instead so I can watch it on my time, not have to go through commercials. Maybe if I want to keep it for a couple of weeks, I know that it's right there on a playlist and I can see it. I'm going to look through a channel guide that's still going to find something that I want to see at that moment. And it's not going to make me feel anxious because it's not the exact perfect thing. It's just something to watch right now. And that's okay. Because watching TV should not necessarily be a high stakes activity. It shouldn't give you this huge amount of angst that comes from some of these modern prestige dramas. Sometimes it should just be fun. And where do you find that fun stuff? Live television. Yes, I know. You're thinking at this point, oh, he's about to start the commercial for Solid Signal. And you'd be right. Because if you're looking for the best in live television, whether it's satellite or TV antennas, you want to shop at solidsignal.com for everything that you need, the same stuff that professional installers have on their trucks. You're also going to want to call Signal Connect at 888-233-7563 to get live TV for your home, for your boat, for your RV, for your business. Because live TV matters. Live TV is good stuff. Live TV is, in the end, what you want. So think about it. Shop at solidsignal.com, the sponsors of this podcast and the people who pay my salary, and always very grateful for that. And maybe consider that live TV's been there for you for decades. It's there for you now. It's not that you owe live TV anything for all the great entertainment that it's given you over the years. It's just still there for you. Why not take advantage? That's about it for the Solid Signal podcast for this week. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Makes me look good to my bosses. As always, shop at solidsignal.com and call Signal Connect at 888-233-7563 for the kind of customer service that you did not believe still existed today. Have a great week. That concludes this Solid Signal podcast, and I will see you again next week.